You started doing the work, you've gone to counselling, you're doing journaling, some sort of self-discovery, even just, sitting with things that you've avoided looking at for years. And somehow you feel worse than before you started. You're more anxious, more emotional, more aware of everything that's wrong. And if that's where you are right now, I need you to hear something important. That is not a sign it's not working. It's often a sign that it is. Because there's a moment in healing where you think, I was better off not knowing. Before I started looking at any of this, I was just getting on with it. It's going through my day. Now I can't sleep. I'm crying at things I never cried at before, and everything feels really raw. The moment has become real. And it's also one of the most important moments in the entire process. Because most people expect healing to feel like relief, and eventually it does. But there is a stage before the relief that nobody really wants you about, where everything feels louder, everything feels harder, and more exposed than it did before you started. And today I want to talk about why this happens, what it actually means, and why pushing through it is one of the most important things that you can do. So, before healing, most people have built this unconscious system for managing pain, not processing it, but managing it. And that could be things like staying busy, staying numb, avoiding certain situations, what I call keeping that lid on. And that system works in the sense that it keeps you functional, but it also keeps everything sealed in underneath. And when you start doing, real healing work, whether that's counseling, therapy, self-discovery, sitting with your patterns, you start lifting that lid. And everything that was sealed underneath starts to move. Emotions that were compressed start to surface, patterns you couldn't, you didn't want to look at and you could potentially ignore in the past become visible and they become impossible to unsee. And the things that didn't used to bother you suddenly do because you're no longer managing them. You're actually feeling them. And guess what? You're not falling apart. You're becoming aware of something that was already hurt inside of you, and there's a significance difference because this is not regression. We're not going back. This is the lid coming off something that needed to be opened. The discomfort is not the healing going wrong, it's the healing beginning. It's like that saying, you got to push through it in order to get, you got to push into it in order to get through it. And usually when we experience trauma or pain, we don't process it in real time. The nervous system files it away as sort of like unfinished business. It stays there, sometimes for years, even decades, waiting for this moment when it feels safe enough to be felt. And healing can create that safety. And the nervous system, which has been on guard for such a long time, starts to release what it's been holding on to. And that release is not comfortable. It can feel like grief, it can feel like rage, like anxiety, like exhaustion even. It can feel like all of those things happening at once. And it's important to understand that your nervous system is not trying to punish you for doing the work. It's finally trusting you enough to let go of what it's been carrying. I had a past client who would go into this, what I would call human doing mode. So they made sure they were just constantly busy, 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 filling their days one thing after the other. And from the outside, they look like someone who held everything together. for years and years and years after their traumatic event. And when they started counseling, everything changed for them. Suddenly they couldn't get through a week without crying. And from the outside, it looked like they were worse off. But from the inside, something inside that had been frozen for a long time was starting to thaw out. And as I said, the thawing is not comfortable, but the frozen state was costing them far more than they realized. And this is where most people quit. Not because the healing's not working, because it is working, but it's really uncomfortable. And the brain starts offering a very compelling argument. This is too much. You were fine before. Just put that lid back on. Try and push it back down. And the argument is worth understanding that it's not weakness. It's the protective part of, of doing what it was meant to do, which is keeping you safe from pain, keeping you safe from changes, from the unknown. And the problem is that it can't distinguish between the pain of staying stuck and the pain of moving through something. It just sees that and feels that emotion. You have a sip. Because that emotion's all the same to the brain, whether it's this big or this big. And the part of you that wants to stop is the same part that created the coping system in the first place. And it's trying to protect you. It doesn't know yet that you're safe enough to allow yourself to feel these emotions. And please don't get me wrong here. This is not a reason to push through at all costs, right? Healing needs to be paced, and good support, professional support matters here. But it's also not a reason to interpret discomfort as failure, because that's definitely not the case. So, guys, if you're open to it, let me ask you 3 questions to explore further. Okay. Now, if you're not, that's okay. You can just fast forward through this bit. You are in control of everything. You're the expert in your life. So if you don't feel ready to explore a little bit, that's okay. If you do, great. After I ask this question, after I ask you about this, you can take a minute, you can pause the video and think of a specific moment in your healing journey, or even in your life right now, where something felt harder after you started looking at it than it did before. Before you were in that sort of what a human doing mode. So take a minute. You might want to pause and then we'll come back for the questions. So question 1, before you started looking at this, how were you managing it? So tell me, what was that lid made of? Was it staying busy? Was it staying numb? Was it avoiding certain people or situations, or telling yourself that, everything's fine. There's nothing to worry about. I'm okay. I'm healed. I've sorted it. Pause if you need to. Have a think of that. And then we'll start with question 2. Question 2. Is it possible that what you're feeling now is not new pain, but old pain that finally has somewhere to go? Now, that might be a new perspective to look at. Okay, so if you need, take a minute, pause the video, take a minute, allow yourself to process, journal, have a think about it. And there's no right or wrong answers here. Okay. Question 3. What would it mean for your healing if you trusted that this discomfort was part of the process rather than a sign it wasn't working? So as I said, pause where you need to through that. And when you finish, write down some notes. Journaling's always really good in this space. But let me know in the comments too how you went. And one thing to remember is that healing is not linear and it's not always quiet. Sometimes the loudest, most uncomfortable stretch is the one right before something major shifts. Yeah. So if you're in this phase right now where things feel harder than they did before you started, you're not doing it wrong. You're just actually doing it. And I want to say to you that takes more courage than most people will ever give you credit for. And if this resonated and you want some support working through what's coming up, there's a link in the description to my free Reclaiming Yourself After Trauma and Grief resource. So jump on and download that. It's all free. And if you want to work through it with someone or me, then you can contact me about individual sessions. I do have small intakes coming through every month. So contact me and we can see if something works out. But yeah, you've got this. As always, please subscribe if you like it, and like the video is a good energy exchange. So thanks, guys. Sending you lots of love, and I'll see you next week. Bye.